Welcome back to the John Fourcade Show. One of our John Fourcade specials this week, a 2015 F-150 Super Cab, $26,997. That's right, a 2015 F-150 Super Cab, $26,997 right here at Veterans Ford. Come on, man. Come on down to Veterans Ford. Welcome back to the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Ford. I'd like to take you along with John Fourcade. And John, as we film in here Thursday, almost noontime, the announcement just made by John Curtis High School offensive tackle Willie Allen verbally commits to LSU, 6'6", in around the 280-pound range. He was recruited by Auburn, Ole Miss, Georgia, Mississippi State, TCU, host of Southern schools, one of the top offensive tackles in the Deep South. Reminds me a lot of, I saw Gerald Hawkins come out from my neck of the woods out in St. Mary. He came out very similar build, maybe not as much weight as what Willie Allen has today, but you know, I look at Gerald today, he's a 320-pound man. So when you look at Will Allen, a big catch for LSU, he's not a guy that can come in right away and play. Right. He's a guy that's gonna have to have a redshirt year, very similar to what Gerald did, but it is not, I might say, you don't see a lot of guys from the state of Louisiana that size. No. That can move like what Willie Allen can, and I think that's a big catch for LSU. One thing I know, it's much easier to put weight on somebody than to take it off. And for a 6'6" guy like Willie Allen, that's a big catch for LSU. And you see LSU's offensive line the last couple of years. They got some big road graders.
You know, a lot of guys look at it and say, hey, man, we got a guy that can play basketball as well as play football. Most of those guys are your tight ends, but you got an offensive lineman guy who loves to play basketball. He's 6'6", 275 pounds. Some people have him up to 300 pounds, but they would love to see him get to 300, but he's not. I've seen him play against Rummel this past season. And the big thing is he's got to get, I mean, at Rummel and I mean, excuse me, at Curtis, they put four-point stance. Yeah. You don't ever see that, but that's why I think you redshirt him, give him a year to learn how to play left tackle or right tackle, whichever it may be. I think he's going to be more suited for a right tackle. I just think that's the way it is. But that's a great guy to be going up at LSU, and LSU lose some players, they gain some players. It's going to be a great acquisition for LSU.
One of the things I like about him is his footwork and his ability to move his feet real well. He's not a power player.
Right.
He's really more of a technician, a guy that can use his arms and hands real well. And so really, I think he's really probably, for LSU, best suited for the left side.
Do you?
Well, where I think that he can use that athleticism best for him. But a big catch for LSU, certainly with Willie Allen. And in tomorrow, Rashard Lawrence, the big defensive tackle from Neville, will make his announcement between LSU and Ohio State. We're going to start it off, man. It's draft season, so to speak, and send up my top 15 for the 2016 NFL Draft, and we'll take a look at who I think will be the top players right off the bat. Laramie Tunsil, the big offensive tackle from Ole Miss, Jared Goff, quarterback from Cal, Joey Bosa, the defensive end from Ohio State, Jalen Ramsey, who can play cornerback, free safety from FSU, Ronnie Stanley, another big offensive tackle from Notre Dame, DeForest Buckner, who I think you're going to hear a lot about as a top 10 guy from Oregon, Laquan Treadwell. John, you know a little bit about Mr. Treadwell as the 7th player on my list. The 8th player, he would have been number 2 if he's not injured. Jalen Smith, who plays middle linebacker, can also play on the edge at linebacker from Notre Dame. Miles Jack, the outside linebacker from UCLA. Shaq Lawson, defensive end from Clemson. Mackenzie Alexander, who I think once you're going to watch him work out, you're going to see how good he is. Cornerback from Clemson. Sean Robinson, the big nose tackle, defensive tackle from Alabama. Robert Kimducci, we know a lot about him. Great talent, off the field issues could shove him down a little bit. Reggie Ragland, middle linebacker from Alabama, and Paxton Lynch, the quarterback from Memphis. John, on that list, I think for the Saints, where they pick at, you would hope that a couple teams fall in love with the quarterbacks,
right,
and get that out of there, that would shove your defensive player close to you. What you see on that list, a lot of those edge rushers off the board by the time the Saints pick it.
Well, you know, they have to definitely look at a rusher, pass rusher, and if you fall back and you don't get one of those, you got to definitely think cornerback. If you got to impress everybody by shoring up that defense, Mike, that defensive unit for New Orleans Saints has to get some players right now, and it's got to be a pass rusher. I don't care who's on the board. If he's a pass rusher, he's there. You got to snatch him up. You're right. Maybe some of these other teams will not go with rushing defense because they need quarterbacks or offensive linemen, because there's a lot of offensive linemen on that list of top 15 that'll be up there. The Saints are picking in the top 15, so they have players they can pick and choose from. It's just a matter of sticking to your guns and start working on the defense.
I think one of the things, and we're going to show the list again, is that once you see what's out there, to me, John, it doesn't matter if it's defensive end, defensive tackle, outside linebacker, or cornerback. You could use help at any of those positions, and that's where off the top here with Tunsil, the big tackle from Ole Miss, he's going to, if he doesn't go to Tennessee, I'd be surprised. You see Cleveland picking two. I mean, they have a huge void at quarterback. Joey Bosa, kind of a smallish defensive end, not a big 6'5", 290-pound guy. He's more of a 6'3", 260-pound defensive end. Jalen Ramsey, interesting athlete because he's played both cornerback and free safety. I think some teams are going to be advantageous toward a big 6'1" corner. Ronnie Stanley, we talked about him, big offensive tackle. DeForest Buckner and Laquan Treadwell. We've seen those two names linked to the Saints. My thing is, John, there's no way Buckner or Treadwell is going to be there when the Saints pick.
No, there's no doubt about it. They're too high up in the draft, and the Saints don't pick that high up unless they move up. But I don't see what the Saints can offer to move up in the draft. And anybody who's drafting this season, why take somebody else's picks to move down when you want to get one of these guys, especially Buckner? If you got a chance to get Buckner as a defensive pass rusher, you go after him. And Treadwell, Jesus God Almighty, you know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Number one wide receiver, I think, in all of college football. They got some lists that people have to go on and look and say, wait a second, if we don't get the top 7 or 8 picks, they got guys like you have on there, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I mean, the Saints got some opportunities to pick a good football player.
Another thing, too, is we're going to show the list of 8 through 15, and these are the more likely guys to be there when the Saints select, is that I wouldn't be surprised, John, the Saints move back. You're not one player away.
Right.
So if somebody would fall in love with a player, I think that list, when you look at 11, Mackenzie Alexander, the cover cornerback from Clemson, Ashawn Robinson, the defensive tackle from Alabama, Robert Kimducci, defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Reggie Ragland from Alabama, I think that's your bullpen for the Saints.
I totally agree. That's the area the Saints are going to be in. I think those are the guys that you have to look at. Maybe there might be another guy who's past the 15th, 16th, because not all these guys should go in the order. You know, I doubt all 15 is going to be going 1 through 15. There'll be some guys falling, maybe some teams moving up, doing some things, but the Saints need to definitely be in that area, and they got some good names on that board you have in the top 15 that they can go out and get defensive-wise, secondary, linebacker / rush defensive end. You need to shore up your defense. Please do not go anything else offensively, and you can get those guys down the road. You better shore up that defense or you're going to have another long year.
One thing we'll do on some later shows is talk about Jalen Smith, because he's the wild card coming off that major knee injury, and we'll show you a lot more on the draft and some of our upcoming segments on this show, talking about the top wide receivers and tight ends. We'll have a lot more here on the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Forward.